Okay, something beautiful is happening here. We're getting some real engagement on the ideas of why I'm risking my life on this hunger strike. And as you know, I'm summarizing those ideas into 2 sentences because we had around 500 meetings this year testing out how can we get such a quantum leap in consciousness into the law and into society in record time. And we found out that even a 6-page summary too much. A 1-page summary we found out was too much for people. They're so overwhelmed by this descending, decrepit society that we're in that they just can't get a page into their head. So we broke it into 2 sentences, and it's working. It's the best thing. I know it sounds weird and the words don't make sense yet, but it's better than having a full page that doesn't make sense, right? So Alana and Natalie and Marlena have been asking for some clarifications, and I'm going to try and give a general overview of the themes of each of the chunks to give you an idea of why we're starting this way. And we know nobody's going to get it. Like if they got it, we'd be doing it already, right? So it is a new level. So we're just going to say you're not going to get it and just like get people to memorize the terms and then just handle hundreds of questions about them. And it seems to take around 100 to 300 questions to break through and realize, oh my gosh, this is really potentially going to work. One guy did it here the other day. He did ask like about 100 questions in 6 hours, and by the end of it, he was like, that did address quite a few of his questions. And there's still more, but it'll start making more sense than less sense. So we just thought, okay, let's just start with the foundation. And then people have a way to reference back when they do ask a bunch of questions. It's not like flying in the air and like, where are we? It's like, you're asking questions on these 2 sentences. These are like the anchors for the mind to return to. It's like if you ask 400 questions, or let's say 40 questions on one chunk of these sentences, you'll end up way out here. And you're like, okay, what are we talking about again? And then we can say, we can trace it back to, we're talking about this chunk. And then it stays coherent. So that's working. That's the best thing we've found so far. And we've tried a lot of other methods. Even when we had like back and forth, like dancing, like, you just answer the questions back and forth. Without the two sentences, you still end up in that, okay, what did I just learn? So we found that this is great to provide a simple anchor. Anything more than two sentences is like too much. 3 sentences is too much. We were even thinking 1 sentence is what we should probably start with, but so far this is good because we have to start with empowerment as the anti-cult training. The first sentence is actually anti-cult training. I should probably tell you that. That's what empowerment is. And then the second one is, okay, well, we're all empowered now. Now what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Just sit around and be empowered and have meetings, or are we going to do something? And then we say, yeah, you're right. The content of the meeting or of the movement is the second sentence. That's why we call it the content sentence. So that gives you a general overview of why we ended up with these 2 sentences. And that's after hundreds of trials of trying other things. So this is, I know it's tough, but it's the beginning. It's the most likely thing to work so far. If you try and boil the sentences down even simpler, you're going to miss something. And then somebody's going to say, wow, what about this? What about this? And then you guys are naive. And this actually covers all of our bases. And that's why if you go through the questions about 100, you're like, wow, you actually are answering all my questions. And that's because I've been working on this for 75,000 hours since I was 13 years old. And many of us in this group have been spending similar amounts of time examining other parts of society. And that's the people who are being attracted here are the ones that have that cultivated inner development to handle what's happening. So that's sort of the overview of the sentences as a whole. So you can see them here. Empowerment sentence is this one. And then the content sentence, that's good to know. Okay, there we go. Content sentence, right? And we made it color coded. It's very easy to see that there's chunks, chunk, A, B, C, D. And then there's just filler words in between. So when we show them people the image, their mind realizes that these chunks are actually aligned. They're kind of similar, right? This one is about the name of the organization, Neural Spirit. This one is about sacred time and governance, running things off of time. And then this is about flow state. And this is about universality somehow, tools and logic. So if you think about it that way, your brain starts to chunk. And we read, when I was studying pedagogy and how to teach and all this, the brain works in chunks. It chunks things and it nests things. So that's what this is built upon. And once you understand the patterning, then it becomes faster and easier. And now there's about 5 people in the core that can say the sentences very, very, very quickly without even thinking about them because the chunks come to mind. Right? You should be able to say the 2 sentences in about 9 to 13 seconds once it really clicks. And that's why each meal is building off of the last one. You just repeat the first and then you add. You repeat the first two, then you add the third. You repeat the first three, you add the fourth. You repeat the first four, you add the fifth. So it's like this reinforcement learning through the meals. And it works. So to give you an example, without looking at the sentences, right, and they're not on my screen, like New World Spirit meetings follow sacred time, empowering people with the rights to flow using universal tools. New World Spirit is our inner government with the ultimate goal of flow states for all using universal tools. Logic. So universal logic. So that's how fast it'll come to you, because there's kind of a cadence to them. They're kind of rhymey. So we're already 5 minutes into this recording, and I hope to have answered a couple of why did we end up here? What's the overview here? So now we can kind of go into each chunk. There's 8, right? 4 in the first, 4 in the second. When we're getting into these later meals, once you get to like unpacking level 2, we actually do go sentence by sentence because it starts to get overwhelming. And then level 3 is more intense. So just to give you a sense, to recap really quickly before we move on, empowerment sentence is empowering to be the anti-cult training. So that means people who aren't even in the organization yet, they're not in New World Spirit. These are your friends that you're going to be telling this about. You're going to say, yeah, we go through this stuff about empowerment so that you feel comfortable criticizing and negating and questioning what the content of what we're doing is, right? That's what we're trying to do, is say, hey, you don't have to like this guy who's claiming to be the Messiah. What a fool. Like, they can say that. What a fool. What a freak. Oh, mental illness. Oh, they can do that, right? As long as it doesn't get to like legal levels, right? Not that they're not trying to harm me or defame my character. But it's like, okay, it might get them to say, okay, well, okay, why do you think you're the Messiah? Why do you think this religious thing is important? Why? And then the questions is how you get to, oh, wait a second, you mean that you're saying that I'm the Messiah too? I'm like, yes, but you have to think in this new kind of science. And if they're atheistic, they're going to like that the proof of truth is a science. It's not just a faith where, oh, worship. That's the scary thing. And then it'll start to make sense why we start with the empowerment sentence as anti-cult training, where you have sacred time. It protects your right to ask questions so that the cult leader doesn't, silence, don't question me, you are banished. It's like, no, you can't do that. Sacred time means you have time to voice your opinion, even if it's critical. And these meetings are structured, these ever-living meetings are structured so that if you're donating a lot of your time, because you can give your time to other people, if you donate your time 4 times to the same cult leader, right, to the same person, there's a suspicion that you're afraid of them and you're giving them all your sacred time. It might be that you want to hear what they have to say, but to make sure, we make sure that the 4th time you donate, you criticize them, or you say, here's an area that I think you can improve, because it's only when you go against somebody or you show them their limit that they use their power against you. So the rights to flow also protects you in 4 other ways, which I'll explain. And then universal tools is 3 tools to make sure that there's an accountability that your questions are answered. So you're not getting superficial answers from the cult leaders or the power structure. So that's why we start with that sentence first. Without talking about what we're going to do, we're just saying you have to feel comfortable doing these things first, or else you're going to get sucked in, right? And we are building a culture here. And everybody's accused of a culture. There's always 2 things you're accused of when you start a powerful movement. Number 1 is you're accused of being a terrorist organization. You're violent, you're dangerous, all these types of things. So that the current hegemon, the current power structure can justify using the military against you to crush you, right? And that's why this has to be a peaceful protest. And a hunger strike guarantees that you can't be twisted into violent terrorists. It's very hard to make Gandhi-like activity look violent. That's why it's very important to have the hunger strikes there. The second thing that the hegemon tries to do, or the power structure that's currently in power wants to do to stop you, is they make you look crazy. They destroy your social capital so that even if you aren't violent and they can't stop you, nobody's going to listen to you, which is what's happening to me now. That's why I'm saying I want you to memorize those sentences, because I'm tired of being marginalized this way. These ideas are really well researched. We just have to have a conversation, and nobody wants to do that because they've written you off already in stigmatism or whatever pathology that they're putting on you. That happens to the poor, that happens in racism, sexism, whatever. It's a dead way of thinking that we're going to challenge. Okay, so that's the empowerment. That's why it's important to start with this and then go to this one. And this one is really about it's the political sentence, right? We're creating an inner government. If we don't create an international system, we can't regulate things because we're flying out of control in what's called the prisoner's dilemma. And we need to solve that. I'll get into that a little bit more. We're about halfway through this video. I'm aiming for about 15-20 minutes. And so far, I'm feeling pretty comfortable about what I've said so far. It's cutting through. It took me a long time to learn these things. So I wanted to show you what the unpacking looks like. So you kind of got the general overview and the ethos around level 0. This is level 0 sentence unpacking. Level 0 means you're not actually unpacking them. You're literally just saying the surface level of them, right? So this is what level 0 of the sentences looks like. Bada boom, bada bang, right? So in the next meal, though, we're going to move to level 1 unpacking. So it's the exact same sentences, right? Oh, I copied it without it being content. It's the exact same sentences, but now look, do you see what's added? We added only one word per chunk, right? So now we're starting the chunking. So unpacking level 1, right? A, meta modes. B, your. C, for. D, 3. Now for this one, A again, meta modes, same as this one. B, alignment. C, inner, outer. D, 3. And we found out that if you unpack it any more than that, the brain can't handle it at first. Once you practice it a few times, you'll get it. It'll feel natural. Because these are the summary words of how to unpack the chunks. It's a reminder word of what the general important theme is of each chunk, right? And so meta modes is just saying that this naming has 5 different levels of names to them, which I'm going to get to in level 2. This means there's something that is sacred about your time, not the president's or somebody else's. Rights to flow. Notice that there's the right to flow has 4, I thought it was plural, but it's right to flow has 4 rights within it. So it's important to have 4 because if you miss one of them, it's going to ruin the dynamic there. And then 3 is that we're not talking about a whole 100 tools. We're talking about 3. There's only 3 that really will protect you. Again, with meta modes, you have to express the name of the organization in 5 different ways, which we'll explain later. The inner government is about alignment. Governments need to be aligned with the truth and accountability, right? Flow states, there's an inner and outer dynamic about it, which you need to know about. And then universal logic has 3 major components to it. So it's priming the mind already to unpack further. So let's go to level 2 unpacking. You can see it's the exact same sentences unpacked to level 1, but now with level 2 here. This is the level 2 stuff that we're adding. So you can see all we're doing is we're building. And we actually keep unpacking in either 3s, trinities, or 4s. Meta mode 5 is a little bit different, right? So here's what the meta modes unpack to. Art consciousness, religious consciousness, philosophical consciousness, scientific consciousness, and genuine wisdom. So when you tell people you ask them, how do you feel about the name New World Spirit? If they are atheistic, they're gonna be like, I hate that spirit stuff. That's a bunch of woo-woo. But sports teams, like a hockey team spirit is okay because it's secular, right? So you might not want to call it New World Spirit to them. The name is like powerful to them. So you can say New World Science, meta mode number 4 is the atheistic mode of consciousness. So you can call it New World Science instead of New World Spirit for them. Or if they're an artist and like, I hate New World Science, then you can say, well, we're going to call it New World Art then. It's the same universal logic in 5 different modes of consciousnness or representation. And there's already a video that one of my friends is going to upload where she does not like the word New World at all because it reminds of colonialism, right? And she's big into indigenous communities. So you can put a disclaimer on there and saying, well, I still like spirit, right? Because the indigenous use spirit, but New World, I'm going to put a disclaimer in my video and say, I don't mean New World in that way. We mean a new world where we're overcoming that. So as long as you allow people to justify the name in a way that makes sense to them in their meta mode, then they can internalize it. The name is really big. It's called the nomological problem. So we're solving the nomological problem by recognizing that there's 5 levels of consciousness, and that comes from the universal logic. That's where I got it from. Okay, and if they don't identify with the name, names are powerful. They will not get behind it. It's that simple. That's why you have to be flexible in that range. And we might call the spiritual side, we might call it One World Spirit, and then the political side, New World Spirit. So we might do that too. Okay, and then level 2 unpacking for sacred time is that it's about your time. Your time is sacred, and you have sacred rituals that make your identity feel like you. If your rituals are violated, your identity and your memory is violated, right? That's why destroying indigenous cultures and their way of life was really destructive. It was really powerful in terms of dismantling the identity, the culture. So we don't want to do that. And it doesn't matter whether it's the tribal leaders or the presidents of states or the Pope or whoever. Their time is sacred, yes, but your time is sacred. Anywhere in society, your time is sacred. You're treated differently now. Okay, and then it unpacks to the self metaphysically is time, which is some universal logic stuff where you unpack that later on in level 3 and level 4. But you just say that, it's so essential to who you are. Time is essential to how we experience reality. You can't get rid of it. It's sacred. And then there's something called time compression, which is that the way that we exchange, we're exchanging our time. Time is something you can't get back, right? But you can compress it and do more with less if you treat it essentially and not just something that's derivative of money, right? Then right to flow has the four unpacks to rights to clear goals, rights to feedback, rights to challenge of a matching skill level, and rights to root clear rules. That's just 4 what are called game rules. So we based the new constitution of the inner government off of these game theory rules. So a good game has to have good goals or clear goals, immediate feedback. The challenge of the game has to match the skill of the players, and then the rules of the game have to be known by everybody so you can know if anybody's cheating or it's fair, right? A government should be a good game. That doesn't mean it's facetious or not serious. It just means that you need to have those criteria met. And that's actually what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is doing in the United Nations. All these political structures are really just doing these things probably in bad ways because they're not clear on the essence of what gives human beings flow states. That's why it's called right to flow. When you're playing a good game, it's an artificial mechanism that human beings make to get themselves into flow states, which is the peak human experience that all humans want more than anything. Everything is in service to that, whether you're kayaking, going grocery shopping, having children, going to school, being in this vegan meal plan group, it's for that peak human experience. Okay? And then universal tools is based on just tools that we use in the meetings so that we know that we're not just talking, we're actually following what we just said in those other chunks, right? So you have flow timers, which makes sure that your time is actually protected and it's sacred. You have UTS, which stands for Universal Ticket System. It's just a spreadsheet that whenever you ask a question, we write the question down, and then the people in the meeting have to go through 5 rounds of making sure they understand the question, and then they try to answer it 5 times. If they can't answer it 5 times in a way that you get to vote on, every time they answer, you get to say from 0 to 10, does that actually answer your question, or are they trying to skirt around your question and placate you, which the governments currently do, right? And cult leaders definitely do that. So we're saying that no, you get to vote. If this is placation, you get to vote. And if it's under an 8 out of 10 answer, then it goes to the next round, and they have to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And after 5 rounds, if they don't explain it clearly to you, then a research committee, the inner government gives resources to a research committee that you get to be on with, and then you research why isn't there a quick and clean answer to this amazing question that's stumping everybody. Okay, and remember, empowerment is about knowledge too. One of the most empowering things is to have knowledge. Knowledge is power, according to Francis Bacon, right? That's how you keep people powerless in your governments, is just don't teach them the law. Don't teach them how the governments work. Don't teach them the rules, right? Make them go to school and just be scientists and all this, but not actually know how to defend themselves in lawsuits and all this. We're going to change that. And then the last thing is a spirit guide. If you don't know how your government is structured, the spirit guide is to get you from A to B without any runaround. It's like, oh, you need to get employment insurance. You need to go do this. They're highly trained, and they don't just pass you from department to department. They stay with you and they go through each department. And that's something that I wish I had when I messaged and sued 53 Canadian departments. And that's all they do. They burn you out. You're in the wrong place. Go over here, and you go over there. Oh, you're in the wrong place. Go over here. Go over here. And it takes forever. So we're not going to do that. So those are universal tools that everybody gets to protect them and empower them and make sure that we're not just saying it on paper, we're living it accountably. Okay? So that's level 2 unpacked. And then for the content sentence, again, it's the same name, right? In the 5 meta modes. And then with inner government, the alignment is with universal logic. There's like an alignment that's of self-justifying science. And it starts with logic, nature, spirit. So it has to be in this order. So the government ministries has to be in the order of the universal logic, which to explain that will take a little bit more time, but it has lots to do with Hegel and academics of the past, and there's about 133 philosophers that are fitting into this order. Okay, but current governments are not ordered that way, which is why they're messy and incoherent. They're very fragmented and fractured and very painful and sprawling. This is very efficient, efficacious, and it works. So we organize all our concepts in our heads the same way. The government should organize them the same way. It just makes more sense. It's a natural kind of ordering. Okay, an inner order, not an oppressive order. And then with chunk C, it's about flow states again, but it's about inner outer. So rights to flow is actually the outer component. It is the external game rules that the government makes for you in your environment to increase flow for you. But in order so that you don't become dependent on the government, our government teaches you the inner way, the way that you can do it through your own personality, called autotelic personalities. And you can see there's 5 personality traits that help you build games within your own mind, right? So you have to have high perseverance, curiosity, low self-centeredness, internal locus of control, and doing things intrinsically. So that's stuff you can do on your own. And we teach you that because it's about leadership too. Great leaders create more leaders, not just followers. Okay, so there's that inner and outer dynamic. And we try and get you to master both so that you're genuinely empowered in yourself and also in the environment that's around you, so that it's not oppressive and prevents you from accessing those gifts and those skills. And then the last thing is universal logic. This is the real heart of the solution, right? This is the heart of the problem of the mega crisis is fragmented consciousness. Because then everything you do is fragmented after that, right? Your work is fragmented, your relationships, your family, your civil societies, your state constitutions, your international politics, and your spirit is fragmented. And when you're fragmented, you don't fit together, you fight with each other, you have resistance. So universal logic is the solution to that, is the solution to fragmented consciousness, because it's a coherence. The concepts of how we organize reality make sense in terms of our thoughts. And there's 3 things you need to know about that there's 200 sublations or dialectics that are the fragmentations. It's like little chunks of like brokenness. And there's 200 that we can teach now, and we start in 3-level chunks. There's 5 levels of how we break it down, so it's very easy. You start with 3, and then 12, and then 40, and then, it's not like all 200 at once. And then there's also these dialectics, which it's not exactly right. This is the old version, but there's also these notions in these dialectics that have 3 parts in them. So it teaches you to think in complete notions or circles, so you don't have these externalities in your thought that leads to fragmentation. And then there's these non-dual circularities which connect to each other through syllogisms. And the upgraded version is better structured than that. But those are the 3 things you need to know so that you can start rebuilding the way you organize reality. And whatever culture or abuse you went through in this toxic society we're in is going to be solved by that. So that's in 23 minutes. That's the general ethos behind why these are very powerful chunks. And as soon as you start asking questions about them, it starts to make a lot of sense. Like, you're empowered before you even start doing the governance stuff, or the inner governance is not about the actual government yet. It's not about the politics yet. That's actual politics. Inner governance is about these 3 ministries are actually in you. Logic is in you, nature is in you, and spirit is in you. But it's also in the external government. But the inner government starts to help you understand how to govern yourself in this new way and organize your thoughts in this way. But you do it through critical thinking. It's not like an indoctrination. It's like you're allowed to ask questions. We propose a concept. You might not understand it right away. Question it before you totally adopt it. Okay? It's about the discussions. And that's why the meetings, New World Spirit meetings, have to be in this empowering way. Because a government is just millions of meetings between humans. An economy is just millions of meetings between humans. A family is just meetings between humans. Civil society is just meetings between humans. If your meetings are broken and aren't empowering, your conversations are going to be broken. And the knowledge is going to be broken, and it's going to be disempowering. So that's why we start there. So just to give you a taste of where we're going with this is what level 3 looks like. And this is why we don't start with it this way. Same sentence, right? And then here's all the chunks that it unpacks to. You probably can't read them, they're too small. But it starts to get a little bit overwhelming, which is why in the future meals, we just go literally chunk by chunk. We just start with these 2, and then you move on to these 2, and then you move on to these 2, and then you move on to these 2. You don't do them all at once, because it's literally a global society unpacking from 2 senses. And you're starting to see why it's realistic that we actually literally can do this and start a new kind of way of life. So when we get to level 3, it'll make enough sense that you'll be able to learn it more. It's just getting past the level 0, level 1, and level 2 where you have to start it'll start making sense, and then just keep asking questions. And then when we go into each chunk, each one of these level 3 chunks gets practical. It's not theoretical. We actually start to learn, and we take down like what you want to do, and we start getting you engaged, and figure out what do you like to do, what puts you in flow, and then you can go back and forth. I don't like that. I want to, and then you find out what you're really wanting to do. And then once you agree to that explicitly in this critical thinking way, then we know that you're in it because you understand it, and not because you're being indoctrinated or you're just memorizing the sentences superficially. By the time you get to level 3, it should start, you should have asked a few dozen or 100 questions. And some people need to ask 500 questions because they need to know everything before they even take one step. And I'll do that too. So whichever way you like to learn, this so far seems to be the easiest way to teach people, because it is a lot. It's 75,000 hours of wisdom and learning and making mistakes and fixing them. And if you make it to level 3, then you'll be able to donate to a meal for each one of those chunks. And that'll take, like level 3 will probably take, a whole week and a half to unpack. So, don't feel too overwhelmed. We've run this by a lot of people, and it's manageable in the chunks. And they're engaging. We learn about you too. So it's not just always feeling like, oh, I'm learning about something else. It's got to be a back and forth reciprocity. Okay, 26 minutes, not quite as short as I wanted, but that's almost as concise as I can make it. Those are the high level general themes of why we did it this way, why each chunk is if you eliminate it, it's going to eliminate something important, right? So let's think along with it now. If you can think of a better way to do this, I would like to know, but you probably won't be teaching your flux exactly this way. Like the people that you bring on, you're probably going to meet them and say, hey, if you know them, you're going to, have a conversation with them, and then get them into the sentences, and then help them and dance with them. So let me know what you think of that. And if it's enough, Alana, Natalie, anybody else who's watching this, I'll post it on the featured, and we can build off of this. Okay? So the big thing is we need to keep sublating, asking questions, and integrating. We'll take this fragmentation. This is fragmented in everybody's minds, but once you get into the inner logic of it, it starts to make sense. And there's a reason to it. And that's why we can call it a science, as well as being divine, as well as being an art, as well as being genuine wisdom, as well as being a philosophy. So, okay, I'm excited for the next questions. Hopefully I did a good job here. Let me know. And this should unlock many, many more questions, but that's the journey, right? The journey is as important as the destination, and I'm happy to be on this with you guys. Thank you so much, and hopefully I'll get to eat today or tomorrow or soon. If you're watching this and I still haven't gotten my third meal, something needs to change, and I'm open to that. But let's not water down the movement, because we don't want to go backwards. Okay, under half an hour, not too bad. Thanks for watching. Keep sublating. Peace.